Tomorrow marks 2 years since Hurricane Ida slammed into Lafourche.
As Natasha Robin explains, the people there are still recovering and working to make the area more resilient for future storms.
As the 2-year anniversary of Hurricane Ida approaches, the people of Lafourche still recover.
You know, it's still a lot of work to do, Natasha. We have probably about 700 people still in temporary housing.
Parish President Archie Chason says most people still displaced were renters. Ida on August 29, 2001 pounded Lafourche with 129-mile-per-hour winds. Despite a mandatory evacuation, only about 50% of residents left.
It was like a third world country. Like, there was no running water. You had to literally weave in and out of like down power lines, and from Thibodeau to La Rose, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
For so many, the rebuild seemed to take forever, and the fight with insurance companies continues even today.
In lawsuits and in LIGA program because their companies might have went belly up. So we're really working hard on that to try to get people in there, more affordable housing, more permanent housing, get those FEMA units and those state campers out of the parish.
Chason says the people are resilient, and it's the reason they've come so far already.
They stayed. They reinvested in the community. They reinvested in their neighbors, helping pick up the pieces, whether it was cutting trees, cutting grass, cleaning up yards, and we continue to do that today.
Meanwhile, parish, state, and federal leaders are working together to make the area more resilient too.
And access to knowledge is the great equalizer, and the president wanted to make sure that we leveled the playing field.
Funding from the American Rescue Plan led to the completion of a project that brought high-speed, affordable internet to homes and businesses in Lafourche.
Much of this project is underground. It's going to have resilience.
Whether it's your broadband internet or whether it's working with our partners at Energy to make sure our power grid is resilient, right? Where we're taking 4 days to get our communities back up and running instead of 4 weeks.
Governor Edwards says there's still a lot more to be done as far as recovery and resiliency, but it's something they're constantly working on.
We know that we have several hundred families still living in temporary travel trailers and not where you want to be when a storm comes ashore.
He wants everyone to be mindful that the peak of hurricane season is now approaching.
I also want them to take account of the very hot Gulf waters and look at the hurricane going to Florida right now. It is undergoing rapid intensification.
As this community recovers 2 years after Hurricane Ida, state and parish leaders are encouraging everyone to pay attention to the tropics this hurricane season. Natasha Robin, Fox 8, Local First.